has brought to the fore the global repercussions due to human negligence. Today, we accept that environmental issues are interconnected with the economy, and experts are of the opinion that we will not be able to develop our economy without addressing environmental issues. Good evening to everyone present here, and we at Social Story extend a warm welcome to our esteemed speakers for a discussion on aligning economy with ecology. We have with us an Indian environmental policy advocate and anti-pollution activist, Mrs. Almitra Patel. After completing her BSc in General Engineering and MS in Ceramics, she became the first Indian woman engineer to graduate from Massachusetts International Technology in 1959. From the 1970s, Almitra was also involved in civic and environmental issues, including saving the Gir lions, being a tree warden, saving Alsur Lake, solid waste management, and building low-cost homes. Almitra went on to become active in environmental policy. She is currently engaged in solid waste management issues in various think tanks and government panels. We welcome you, ma'am. We have amidst us Mr. Saurabh Singh, who is the president of ICICI Foundation for Inclusive Growth. In his capacity as the president, Mr. Singh is responsible for ensuring that the activities of the foundation are executed as per the directions of the governing council. Over the past few years, ICICI Foundation has been primarily focusing on skill development and sustainable livelihood as its key initiative with an objective of creating direct impact in the lives of the beneficiaries. We welcome you, sir, to Social Story. Nixon Joseph is the President and Chief Operating Officer at SBI Foundation. He has been actively involved in a lot of developmental and community service banking activities. He works closely with the SBI's flagship programs and is the face behind the success of these CSR initiatives. He has received the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Professional Excellence and also is the former president of Toastmasters Club Tokyo and a founding member of Tokyo International Debating Society. We welcome you, sir. And now I would like to introduce Parul Kumar, a social entrepreneur and co-founder of Prabhav Foundation. Prabhav Foundation is contributing in field of conscious living with focus on environment, education, health, and culture through various CSR projects. With many awards and achievements to her kitty, Parul is now striving to build an inclusive society wherein every individual lives a life of dignity as an empowered and self-reliant entity. I welcome you, ma'am, and request you to take over the discussion.
Thank you, Reshma, for handing over me the mic today, and welcome everybody. From time immemorial, we know that the interdependence of environment and living is a universal truth. For people about 3,000 years ago had a concept about the intensive binding of nature and living. I am reminded of a very, very small Sanskrit shloka. And it goes like this. Om Dhyo Shanti Antarikshagam, Shanti Prithvi, Shanti Rapa, Shanti Roshadhaya, Shanti Vanaspataya, Shanti Ravishve Deva, Shanti Brahma, Shanti Sarvagvam, Shanti Shanti Reva, Shanti Sama, Shanti Redhi, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And when we translate it into English, it says, the peace should be in the sky. Peace is the space that is between earth and the sky. Peace be in the earth, in the water, in the plants, in the trees, and in the gods presiding over the various elements of nature. Peace is in the Brahma. Peace is prevailing everywhere. Peace is within us and peace is around us. So taking forward, good evening, everybody. And I have a proud privilege to do the moderation with the esteemed guest today within this virtual meeting. Coming to the environmental issues, we all know the basic environmental issues existing today are air pollution, poor management of waste, growing water scarcity, falling groundwaters, biodiversity loss, and soil degradation. And as the times passed by, we have seen the greed of man overpower the nature, and we have been taking too much from the nature. My first question goes to Mr. Saurabh Singh, President ICICI Foundation, who's been so passionately involved with livelihood projects. And sir, I would like to open the forum for you to comment and address that how do we address these problems, and is it too late for us to move forward from now where we stand?
Uh, Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that it's never too late. Someone, somewhere, someday has to make a beginning, and whoever makes a beginning at whatever point of time, we have stalwart like Mrs. Almitra Patel, and I think she started long back. Probably we can start now, but I think we all of us have a role, and all of us can contribute. Now, the way I see it, I actually see it as a ticking time bomb in India. And why I'm saying that is 130 crore of population, currently sitting at approximately per capita income of $1,900. And as this per capita income grows, which everyone around us want this per capita income to grow, the consumption will grow. And if consumption grows, that means the production has to grow. And if production has to grow, raw material has to come. And all this has to come from the nature. So the cycle we are in is clearly a cycle of growth. And this growth is coming at a cost which is partially being damaged, partially can be recovered. But when we sit together, I think it's time that we start thinking of sustainable growth. And even with the per capita improving, I mean, the consumption of steel will go up, the consumption of plastic will go up, consumption of wood will go up. All that we are observing all around us. And consumption of food is also going up. So for thousands of years, India, the agriculture system has been exploited. Not much of further technical input. So the production has stagnated. In some areas, the soil has degraded because the topsoil has been eroded. We are observing water tables going down, as you mentioned. And now with the solar pumps coming in, the water tables can be extracted more. The water can be extracted more at a very low cost. So on one side with solar, we are saving one part of environment, but degrading another part of environment. So very clearly the issues at hand are very wide and macro. And I don't think so any one of us sitting in the panel can really resolve it. But one resolve we can make is to attempt to resolve it. And whatever we do, so if I work for an organization, can I convert my organization first into carbon neutral? Then can I look at my customers getting into practices which are carbon neutral? So whatever areas we can impact, whatever areas we can influence, I think we have to start acting. I think a lot of us have started acting. We also see some results, and a lot of results will get seen later. But what I'm very happy that out of the 20,000 crores approximately of CSR money which has come in, some percentage is going for environmental re-engineering, trying to improve things that have degraded. And that's the green shoot which I'm seeing. And these funds are very young, just about 4 or 5 years in operation. So as we go forward, I see a role of the CSR funds with organization trying to contribute to recoup the damage that has happened and also work in a direction that lesser damages happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So taking 2 points from your talk, one is the GDP we talked about, And when we talk of economic growth, we also have to look at the social progress index, which is a very important area which we generally neglect. And if we talk of the GDP, which is not the destiny actually, you look at Russia, you look at China, you look at India itself, they have high GDP, but the environmental issues or the social progress index is being neglected. Whereas on the other side, countries like Costa Rica or New Zealand, or for that matter, Rwanda, is taking care of their social progress index. And as a result, they have a higher progress in their societies. You very rightly said about the CSR funding and the corporate's role amongst, how to help this environmental issue. So for that, we know that all elements of nature are governed by a unique force. And if there is any disbalance, everything is unstable. I would really like to talk to Mr. Nixon and ask specifically that how does he feel the role of corporates in improving the current economical conditions? Nixon, sir.
Thank you, Madam Parul Kumar ji. And I fully agree with Saurabh Singh ji when he told that we are like our per capita income, GDP, growth, all these to be improved. And therefore, we are going to have, or we won't be happy unless we have double-digit growth. And this growth is followed by exploitation of over-exploitation of whatever resources there will be in India, and which will lead to a lot of ramifications which we are not thinking about now, because the issue after COVID is that we have to bring the economy back to maybe double-digit growth, or for achieving the earlier goal of 5 trillion economy. So naturally, we though we are telling that post-COVID there is going to be new normal. This new normal will also be like the previous one, pre-COVID one, because much change cannot come only by COVID. And also what I feel is that before COVID, a lot of steps were taken to achieve the SDGs, to focus on renewable energies, focus on sustainable activities, etc. But then COVID has put a dampener on all these, and it has taken all these, it will take all these back. And to your question, whether what CSR can do here, etc., I feel is that CSR is not the 2% which is mandatorily the government has asked to spend on social activities. Whatever, what is happening now is corporates are exploiting resources, may or may not be complying with regulations, environmental regulations, etc. But then they are very happy that 2% is spent on CSR. The focus should be on integrating this into the daily operations and to see how this profit has been made. So if we are flouting environmental regulations, if we are over exploiting resources without thinking about a better planet, but we are only thinking about better profit, spending 2% will not be corporate social responsibility. So when the day a company is incorporated, from that day onwards, CSR has to be sustainability, corporate social responsibility. All these have to be part of the DNA of the company or corporate. If that is not happening, we will all be focused on immediate profit only. And post-COVID also, our focus will be on deriving more profit. Because short-term profit is what everyone is looking for. So unless all of us have an awareness that environment or ecology concerns also should go along with profit concerns, we won't be able to make much of a change by CSR alone. CSR is doing like spending 2% of the profit. It's most of the corporates are doing it in various activities. That's a great improvement. But my view is that this is not going to like change the attitude, change the direction to a fully sustainable India, unless it becomes part of the DNA of the corporates. And post COVID, we should all like everyone, it is told we should move to a green economy. But then the incentives, what is the incentive for that? When it is a short-term profit is the focus, what is the incentive? Because going to a green economy requires a lot of capital expenditure and even a higher expenditure. What is the incentive for this? Unless the board members, unless the directors, unless the corporate understands the concept that if we are focusing on short-term profit, in the long term, the company, its corporate itself may not be exist, because we are damaging the environment, we are damaging the future of the planet, we are damaging the future of the population. Then what is required is the shift from short-term gains to the long-term outlook. And also the awareness that whatever we do as a corporate, it should be having social responsibility in mind and not thinking only about the CSR of 2%. And personally also, each person should be aware of the damage he is causing to the environment. So what is regular? I should be aware of how much carbon footprint I am creating. I should be aware of how much damage I am causing to the natural resources. So from the government side, I would suggest that we should have like some label, like whatever we buy everywhere, it should come. You by buying this, you have caused this much carbon footprint or this much damage to the environment. So such a thing, if it is there, means at least all of us will be aware that we ourselves are creating a lot of damage to the environment, damage like impairment to sustainability. So we should do something. I have found a young generation, they are very, very conscious of the environmental issues and all. And therefore, if we are having some awareness that each of us is causing a lot of damage to the environment, that will be a good step towards sustainability. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we all know that economy is the wholly owned subsidiary of the environment, and Earth itself controls the economic activities. And we are all looking for a better world by 2030, probably. And that's how the world leaders talk about. There are sustainable global goals which we have in front of us, but are we making this world a better place? That's a big question. The poverty has gone down by 12% globally, but is it only because of the economic growth? So there are certain questions. From time immemorial in our Indian system, we know about recycling, reducing, and reusing. All of us have grown, in each houses with something called kabadi wala coming and taking and recycling, and we have been using it. Ma'am, I, ask you something to sum up everything about the solid waste management, the entire thing that you have done so much about it, the environmental issue, how to tackle it, because this is not, it is each one's problem itself. Each individual is as responsible. It is not you versus me or a corporate versus anybody else. It is like all of us have to make this world a better place. So ma'am, I would like to hear your thoughts on that. Almitra ma'am.
Thank you. you are quite right that every single individual is contributing to the enormous mess we have just in our waste management. From Vedic times right until the 1970s, 80s, there were no dump sites in India because the waste that came out from homes was only food waste, biodegradables, food, fruit, flowers, garden waste. Would eagerly in Goa go with the bullock cart house to house to collect this to compost in their fields. And in the cities, they would come and fight over the dustbins, the cement rings at the street corners, where they could empty the organic waste into their bullock carts after bringing produce to town. Two things have destroyed this. One is the massive urea subsidy, which has killed composting habit, but much more important is the plastic yug, which came upon us in the 70s. In the beginning, we would save all these bags. When they became freely available, we just chucked them into the food waste. When farmers took this to their fields, the plastic blanketed the ground, wouldn't let the rain go in, wouldn't let it sprout out. It made the fields infertile also when the plastic glued to neighboring plots. So they stopped lifting city waste, and suddenly cities found themselves with a problem they had never planned for or anticipated. And their solution was to just take it outside the city limit and dump it along the roadsides or on any vacant plot or field that they could find. Now we have designated spots which we fought to get for them to do composting in those locations. But as soon as they got it, they said, wow, a place to dump, and they began dumping mixed waste. And these mountains of mixed waste have enormous economic cost, not just of smell, flies, smoke, groundwater pollution to the immediate neighborhood, but also to the nation, which will be quite unable to clean up its precious water sources once they are polluted. And a cost to the planet also, because these airless dumps generate not only the polluting leachate which goes in the groundwater, but methane which goes in the air and fuels climate change. So the cost to a country for not managing its waste is the coastal communities which will get submerged by rising sea levels. And nobody is thinking about that. It's not immediate. And every single one of us citizens, as you have pointed out, all we need to do to improve the situation is to minimize the waste that goes to these mountains of waste. Just keep our food and our other waste unmixed. Then the food waste can be composted and go back to make our soils fertile again. And the clean recyclables will have better value for the informal sector that is keeping us going. And it can go for easier and better recycling. What I have been focusing on earlier was the importance of keeping our waste unmixed so that this could happen. My later efforts have been, once that message is out there, it's up to people to try and do their bit for the environment by keeping their waste unmixed. But what do we do about the mountains of waste that have been created, as our earlier speaker spoke about, looking for short-term profit and not living sustainably? So all the municipalities also collect the waste spend no thought, money, time, or space for treating or managing this waste, just transport and dump on somebody else's panchayat land or whatever. It's time we have to now clean up these dumps. There's an enormous cost to cleaning them up, which can easily be done now in a two-step method. One is the airless dumping has to be reversed by sliding heaps into ridges where air can reach them, spraying them with biocultures to speed up the composition of the organic portion so that the generation of leachate and methane is stopped. With 4 weekly turnings, the volume of this waste also comes down by 40%. You're left with only 60%. That's a huge benefit. And once this biostabilizing, or you can call it bio-drying, because the volume goes down by the moisture going out and making the soggy waste screenable. Once you screen this waste into different fractions, the finest fraction, which is half soil and half organics, is a good soil improver and soil conditioner.
Ma'am, I would like to just comment on in between. Sorry to interrupt you, but you have really talked intensively about the solid waste management in India. And you're the pioneer in doing this work and starting the work. And we are really, taking forward a bit of my conversation with Mr. Saurabh once again. I would like to know that what are the different things that we can do? How can we do things differently? Because that is what is required now. Things have been happening. We all are aware that the environment needs our attention. But should we be demanding what we want? And also, what are the different things to be done differently, or the usual things to be done differently, as we put it?
In my mind, I think there are multiple things which are possible. As ma'am was explaining very well, one part is the urban solid waste management. Parts of India is urban, but part of India is rural. And I think every practice that you see in rural India is also degrading the environment. And I'm making this statement very responsibly. Urea was mentioned. So rampant use of urea, rampant use of free canal water, salinity going up in ground, underground water being used more than required. Now, one initiative which I keep speaking everywhere, soil health, the rural health of individuals, rural health of animals, all has to be combined into single initiative. And the highest amount of people in the country are dependent on agriculture and agriculturally allied activities. But where do you see anyone being trained on what are the good agricultural practices? We have imported certain practices without understanding how much of urea is required, or how much of potash is required, or how much of pesticide is required. I'm not saying these things are not required. I mean, it's the same like the use of antibiotics for human beings. When people are popping up antibiotics like they're throwing urea in their fields. So we have a very large population which is semi-literate. There is no formal way of educating them on issues which pertain to the environment and their livelihood. What we are educating them is certain amount of textbook, which I don't know whether they even recall after 7 months or 8 months. So the method of education which is going on has to undergo some change, where people have to learn about livelihood and how they can make a better livelihood and how not to destroy livelihood for others. Both are important. So at Urban India also people need to learn, and I think ma'am has spoken enough about it. That's why I refer to rural India, that in rural India, there are a lot of wrong practices which we need to correct, and they're feeding poison to the urban citizens. That needs to stop. Probably the healthcare expenditure for urban citizens also will drop. So the entire agri practice of this country is the first one in my mind that needs to be addressed environmentally, ecologically, and from health of every individual of this country.
So very well said, Saurabh sir. And you talked about education and health, which are, of course, two of the most important pillars in developing any society. And I was reading an article sometimes back which says because of the environmental issues, autism is on increase, because the kind of air being inhaled and the kind of rightly said, agricultural produce that we have are not so healthy, and as a result, the children, are change makers of the future. Are a lot of autism is happening in our country. I would like to turn to Nixon sir, because the foundation does a lot of work in the field of health. So, sir, how do you put health and environment together?
See, of course, foundation is supporting many projects on health. And see, if environment is degraded, it affects the health of everyone. And but that is not realized to the extent required. That is why we keep on damaging the environment, neglecting the environment, because as I earlier told, it's all for short-term gains. The awareness that whatever we do is going to come back to us in some adverse form or other has to go deep into like everyone. And at the education level itself, school education onwards, we have to focus on environment, how we have to behave as like a good citizen. All these are not happening. Like I was thinking, in Japan, we find one of the countries which keep everything clean, taking care of the environment. So one way they have done it is by imbibing this in the education in the first 4 or 5 years of the school. So if that happens, it becomes part of the culture. Same way, here also, I think this has to be part of our school education. That is one thing. See, our CSR projects on health, like as a response to COVID only, we started more. This is mostly diagnosing COVID, post-COVID treatment, all these things. But that I feel it's only we are attending to one silo. But whatever, as I told, like if you take the SDGs, one SDG is going to, if improvement in one will lead to all many other things. Same way, health also, we are supporting a health project, but then I feel it has to be done holistically, because better health will lead to better education of children. Better health will lead to better productivity. All these better health leading to education, that will also give awareness about keeping the environment clean, how to manage waste. All these are interconnected. So, like if post-COVID only, like, or during COVID only, now we are thinking that we have to change into a new normal. We cannot continue as the earlier way, the way we were doing business earlier. But post-COVID also, if this has to change, apart from awareness, apart from enforcing the regulations, there is also to be some kind of incentivization for a short period so that people adopt this habit. Like even segregation of waste or recycling of waste. All these areas, some kind of incentivization for a short period is required that becomes part of our culture. Thank you.
So, sir, you mean that awareness is the first step towards it? That is what you...
Yes, I feel awareness is something very much required because, as I told you, most of us, we are concerned with the short-term outcome only.
Right.
So I am doing something, I am getting some benefit out of this, that is fine. But then whatever act I do is creating a long-term impact that I am not aware. I am not aware. I am not bothered because I am not deeply aware of it. Or I am thinking it is going to happen only later. So this awareness has to be there. That is why I told whatever thing I do, focus should be one on each individual, how much damage he is causing to the environment. We should have a measure for that. We should be aware. I'm buying something from a supermarket. How much carbon credit I have, carbon I have created because of this? What is the carbon footprint? All these, I think this, if we, India after post-COVID, we are like so much stimulation packages, everything are coming. But then at the same time, we should also focus on these things that it can be driven in parallel. So like if we tell people, when you did this, when you traveled from one end of this place to another place, you created this much carbon, this much emissions you have created. That kind of awareness, if it is there, it will be a big step.
Right, sir. Thank you. So, people cut trees rampantly for any project. Again, I'm sure you all must be knowing in the Western Ghats, the 5,000 trees are being cut for making some railway line or whatever. So I would really like to know this kind of ecological imbalance. Is that, I mean, one side we should be planting a tree for every occasion. That's how it should go, or we need that kind of greenery in our environment. But we are cutting the trees, we are destroying the flora and the fauna of the area. And so isn't it high time that we should be asking, should be a demand that this earth should be better placed, this country should have better prioritization. And ma'am, no one better then you could answer this, because it is not only solid waste management, but I would like to know on other aspects also, because it is very rightly said, it has to be a holistic development or holistic thought process behind when you are saving the environment. It has not to be done in silos at all. So your thoughts, ma'am, on that?
While you were speaking, one in my mind of the absolutely needless and horrifically harmful Hubli-Ankola railway line, which they want to lay right through the densest, most valuable biodiverse part of the Western Ghats. There are already enough ways to go from Hubli to Ankola via slight detour around the precious Western Ghats. Absolutely no need to move iron ore a few hours faster at the cost of so much biodiversity. And this suggestion of each one planting a tree and so on, there is too much ritualistic planting and no nurturing of what is planted. Nobody, when they plant something, looks up to see whether there is a line going over the spot where they have just planted a sapling. What will happen when it grows 10, 15 feet and is butchered by the electricity department to keep the lines safe?
True.
There is another thing that pains me. When I moved to a farm in Bangalore, I planted about 2 kilometers of roadside trees along the existing road. Okay, the road was widened. It became a state highway, then it became even a more important road. But when they widened the road, the PWD has specifications. So much is carriageways, so much is road shoulders, drain, planting, and so on. And they never identified the tree planting line for the widened road where the next row of trees to come. And years after it's been done, I've been asking, where will you stop your work so that I can now plant the next 2 kilometers of roadside trees in our Bangalore semi-rural area? There is just no thought for that. And also the species of trees we are planting, they are too much ornamental and not supporting bees and the wildlife and biodiversity, even urban biodiversity. We need to give that some more thought.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. Saurabh, sir, when we talk, how do you think we can work in, how much do we take onus of anything in our country? That is something which has always troubled me, actually, because we generally feel that we have done this much, and after that, the line it is somebody else to do it. Even planting a tree, like rightly ma'am said, we just plant a tree and forget about it. Are we doing it with a thought? Are we designing anything with a thought? Are we working in the synergy with each, the various stakeholders of the society? And how do we do this? Because this is a very, very basic problem existing in our country of taking an onus that yes, we are doing it, and how do we connect the stakeholders together?
See, when we talk of the country, it's very easy to blame or pass on the blame or pass on the responsibility. All of us living in buildings and flats know that they're famous neighbors who always want to throw their kachra outside the house and then shut the door. So that's a society we're living. But I'd just like to take us slightly back that any economy, when it's growing, there are parts of economy at various stages of growth. So there are parts of the economy which have been educated and have stable income. There are other parts of the economy which are very poor, and there are people in between. So if you look at each segment has different habits, because there are people who are looking at economy for survival, and then there are people who have enough to give back to the society. So all of us are coexisting in this society, and if we talk, we'll be seen as preachers, because influencing 130 crore people and their behavior is not going to be easy, because each one of us think differently and our needs are very different. But I think initiatives at a rural level, at a urban local body level, to try and convert the place into something which is self-sufficient as far as possible. I mean, there's nothing called self-sufficient. I mean, you can move towards self-sufficiency, but there'll always be gaps. So that's something which needs to be worked out, and someone has to sit and forecast that how many tons of wood do we need after a few years, after 5 years, after 10 years, and are we planting enough? Or like the Himalayan region, we just go and plant pine wood, which is of no use to anybody and only gives forest fires. So there are calls which have to be taken very thoughtfully. I see a lot of policies coming in place, but all gaps in implementation. I think for every tree we cut, there is a fee to be paid. The fee has to be kept for promoting forestation. But is it happening, not happening? I think there are a lot of gaps in implementation. That's where I feel that if at education level we are able to bring in some kind of awareness and practices, not just awareness, practices where people should be touching the soil with their hand and not with gloves. So unless and until we touch our mother soil with our hand, how do we get a feel for it? Now, some of these things are very important to be taught at when you are in first, second, third. Otherwise, later in life, you can't learn it. So I feel while it's overburdening the teachers, they are already burdened with a lot of things, but maybe some of the burden can be removed. People can learn their ABCD after 8 years of age and learn some of these practices at the earlier age. I think will do good to the society and probably all of us will live longer.
Absolutely, rightly said, sir. And today being the World Soil Day, I think we are hosting this meeting on a very auspicious day because of the environment and the soil. And Saurabh sir said that putting your hand in the soil is so very important. I think I mean, I have grown up like that, playing in the soil. I don't know how many kids today have that opportunity. In the schools, you do find some sand pits, but making your own little kitchen gardens and growing vegetables and knowing everything about it, and then playing with the soil has a different beauty altogether. Our generation has done it, a few of them, and we really wish that the future generation also does something about it, and we leave a beautiful world for the change makers. Like, I feel the children and the youth are the change makers for the society, and we should begin something. I'm like, through this discussion, we are looking for some solutions because we already know what the problems are. The problems can be discussed for hours and hours, and we can, like Saurabh sir rightly said, we can pass the buck to the other person. But very important is to take the responsibility to and start working from today itself, from now onwards. I would like to open the forum now, and anybody who would like to say something, give a suggestion, how, because on a social story platform, because social story is a very important platform where they carry forward the message of the people to the world as such. So anybody who wants to give some suggestions, anybody who wants to say something about it, so the forum is open.
It's open for the speakers or the other participants who will come in?
So for the speakers first, of course.
Okay, I think I'll just want to make one more comment.
Sure.
That when we try and connect ecology with economy, see, the worst thing which I don't like about economy is, or even the society, is converting everything into a number, and that number is currency. So who is the best person in my society? The richest person is the best person. Might be degrading the earth, might be exploiting the earth, but the richest person is the best person. So this penchant for converting everything into currency and number, how many lakh of trees have you planted? Rightly, ma'am pointed out which species is more important than the number of pine trees which Himalayas has got today. And we need crores and crores of rupees to cut down those pine trees. So it's converting everything to number, I feel, is damaging all of us. And the two bankers in this panel, I still dare to say that this number game is one of the spoilers of many things that's happening around us. And because we want to show our achievements, so until I build a dam, I can't show the quantity of water. If I do groundwater recharge village by village, it won't show up. It won't show up today, but it will do more benefit to the ecology and environment than a dam, which is damaging. So I think those small initiatives have to be looked at And again, when I'm saying small initiatives, they can't be measured. We have to trust. So I say that trust and environment have to go together and not numbers and economy.
So very well said. But when we are looking at the CSR programs, we are always talking about the impact creation. What is the number? Is it in thousands or it is in whatever? So
We
that's,
stay away from it, and luckily the
yes,
board of ICSI bank
yes.
permits us to stay away from it.
From it. That's very good, because even smaller initiatives can be very meaningful and they can have a ripple effect, beginning a ripple effect in the society. So I really would like to hear the thoughts of Nixon sir over this. That what do you say about the numbers that Saurabh sir has just mentioned?
See, numbers are there because if there is no number, we won't be able to measure what we have done. That is also to be kept in mind. I fully agree that this numbers game will distort the impact or distort what we genuinely want. But then without numbers, it becomes difficult to measure the progress. That is something we have to keep in mind. And I feel this pandemic has given us a chance to rebuild a new normal. And instead of thinking that government will do or others will do, I think each of us have to find out in our own way what are the small steps we can take to bring this change. Because now the pandemic itself is the result of our over exploitation of nature. And then if we are not learning from this will only lead to more pandemics or after effects, the climate change is going to come. So all these things, it is there. And if we are not learning from this lesson, more and more such crises will happen. That awareness, I think, to a great extent, it has happened. People have come to many have started changing their outlook or way of life, and although universally it may not have happened, but then it is happening. So many people have learned from this crisis. So I think that I'm very optimistic that the new generation, and we are having a 60% youth population, the youth are aware about the crisis, and they are more aware about the environmental issues and all, waste management, etc. They are more aware and more conscious about it. So I'm sure that they will bring the change, and all of them will take small steps towards towards making a sustainable and better planet.
Very well said, sir. So, of course, this pandemic has really taught us, because when it began, the lockdown began in the whole of country on 22nd of March, and we knew how less our requirements are and how the nature thrived. The birds were chirping and the flowers were blooming, and it looked much better and much greener. I can talk about Delhi being a Delhiite, that it looked, we could actually smell flowers all around, and we could take the clean air inside, because which is a major problem here in Delhi because of the stubble burning, or generally the vehicles. It is, of course, air pollution is there everywhere across, but during the pandemic, we did think that, yes, of course, we are being locked and the nature is thriving, and it's a lesson from the nature, rightly said, sir. But how much have we all learned is a big question still. Some people, yes, even if one life changes, I think it's for the lifetime, because that's how it is very important. It is very difficult to change ourselves, and we think that we are change makers and we are changing everybody's life. But till you yourself want from within to make a change, there's nothing can happen in the world. But I'm sure we are all very optimistic in making this world a better place, leaving it as a better place for a younger generation. And in a small little way, our foundation is doing so much against the air pollution in Delhi. We are making stubble pots we buy the stubble from the farmers and convert it into pots, which we are planting beautiful trees and then giving it to people. The other initiative that we are doing is, making reusable from the tires. We are making furniture and we are connecting it with people too. So we are giving livelihood one side, and we are also saving on environment. Almita ma'am, would you like to say the final words and then we can wrap up the whole conversation for today, please?
Well, your remark about stubble pots made me want to share what a young startup company in Bangalore called Trashcon.in is doing. They are preventing the burning of this multi-layer plastic, which is a real plague in our society. The advertising people wanting glossy, colorful packaging are absolutely refusing to redesign for recyclability. So the recommendation is that all this should travel at a huge fossil fuel cost to cement plants as a coal substitute. But Trashcon is plywood-like boards of 8 to 22 millimeter, 4 by 2, 8 by 4 feet boards and lumber. And they also claim to be able to absorb stubble into that. So MLP is an urban waste and stubble is a rural waste. They can combine both of them into stubble polymer boards. And it's this kind of innovative efforts by the youth of this country which are a glimmer of hope for us.
Absolutely, very well said. I think this platform was an amazing platform today to get connected to all three of you as our speakers today. And I really wish I could do justice to the topic in today's forum. And we wish that we as a team, along with Social Story, can do many more such awareness campaigns and take it forward, that yes, all of us actually wish that we contribute whatever little way, in whichever way we can, about the environment. Thank you so much for connecting today with us. Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday.
Ma'am, we have a small video which
Yeah,
Almita
sure.
ma'am had asked
Sure.
us to share. So, Manoj, can we play that, please?
This is probably going to be about the Gurugram Faridabad dump, showing how those mountains of mixed waste can be brought down and treated. I think the sound is missing. The plastic is removed from the surface. Biocultures are dripped into the water to digest the organics. And it shows how the air is brought into these mountainous heaps, first by it, and then by slicing it into ridges where the air can enter the waste and help to reduce it. Spraying biocultures on the top on the sides of the opened up place, forming them into windrows like this, which drains out the leachate for treatment. And it can also be turned. And this is how an 80-foot mountain was brought down to 15 feet carpet of stabilized waste ready for screening.
Oh,
And sorry, the sound wasn't working.
Amazing.
that
Very,
was
really
amazing.
nice. Yeah.
I would just like to add that Almitra ma'am's landmark 1996 public interest litigation in the Supreme Court against the open dumping of municipal solid waste was instrumental in drafting the municipal solid waste management rule. And I think ma'am has contributed enough, and now it is our duty to, do our own part. So
She's an inspiration. Yeah, she's
yes,
an inspiration. Absolutely.
definitely, yes. And on behalf of Social Story, I would like to thank Prabha Foundation for supporting Social Story in bringing out this insightful session. Indeed, we had a lot of good thoughts from Almitra ma'am, from Saurabh sir, and from Nixon sir. Thank you so much for joining in and sparing your time with us. We would like to extend our gratitude to all of you for joining us today. Thank you so much, everybody.